episode 41 of the Dorton and Doetkott Debate Podcast. Episode 41 here. I am Lucas Dorton, joined by, once again, Nick Doetkott. And Nick, how are we doing on this fine January night?
We're hanging in there, man.
One day at a time. One day at a time.
That's
all you can do. So some of the news we're going to be talking about today is a little bit old. Like we said, just trying to get back on a regular schedule of doing things. And a lot of the craziness with the holiday season kind of made things a little difficult to get a podcast out with all the traveling and stuff going on. But with the holiday season behind us, does not look like we will be having anything too catastrophic or big coming up soon. Hopefully not. That we should be able to be on a week-by-week schedule again, so you can hopefully start expecting that again shortly here. But you wait long enough and you have stuff to talk about, and we have stuff to talk about and a decent amount of it. So we will just get right into it here, starting with a trade. The Cincinnati Reds traded their closer, Raisel Iglesias, to the LA Angels for right-handed pitcher Noé Ramirez and a player to be named later. This is a solid trade. Obviously, Iglesias is always a guy every single year. It seems like he's going to get you saves. You know, he's a reliable guy in the back end of the bullpen. And one thing that we know for the Angels is they need pitching. Now, he is not a starter. He's not going to be going 200-plus innings for them, which is what they probably need most. But it certainly is a step in the right direction for a struggling pitching rotation.
Yeah. I mean, the Angels bullpen was about middle of the pack last year. You know, obviously a shortened season, but it's still, it don't matter. They're still in the middle of the pack. So Iglesias has a 3.15 career ERA. That's pretty solid, and he was 2.74 last year. He's I don't know if he's going to be their closer or not. Off the top of my head, I don't remember who the closer was last year. It was Robles 2 years ago, but he really struggled last year. I can't remember if he held on to the job or not. But whether he's their closer or not, he's a good bullpen arm to have at the end of your bullpen. And at this point, he's actually got quite a bit of experience. So, and no Ramirez, he's nothing really special. So, I mean, they didn't really give up a lot. So, I'd say it's a good acquisition at the very least.
It sounds like Ramirez is also under team contract for 3 more seasons. Won't be a free agent until 2023. So, potentially the guy pans out and you still have him for a decent bargain here.
And the Reds have replacements. I mean, they had 2 other guys in the bullpen last year, I believe, with a sub 3 ERA. Amir Garrett's pretty solid. I could see him stepping into the closer role. So the Reds should be fine. I mean, obviously they're going to lose Bauer, which is the bigger issue, not their bullpen. Right. But I mean, it's the Reds. Yeah, they're losing a good reliever, but they'll be all right in the bullpen.
Well, to see how that goes. The Reds definitely had some timely hitting last year, but pitching was really solid for them, and they lost now Iglesias. They non-tendered Archie Bradley earlier in the offseason as well, too. And more obviously, we don't know where Trevor Bauer is going. I don't think he's going to go back to Cincinnati. He might, but I don't see that happening. But nonetheless, we'll have to see what happens here. Step in the right direction for an Angels team that needs pitching. I feel that's the last spot that they need to make an actual push to get to the playoffs.
Yeah.
Lance Lynn going to your AL Central rivals, the Chicago White Sox. It was a trade from the Rangers. They bring Dane Dunning, who is a White Sox number 5 prospect, and minor league left-hander Avery Weems to the Rangers for Lance Lynn. Now, Lance Lynn, obviously, a couple seasons ago, the way he started, it looked like he might very well win a Cy Young Award. Now, obviously, he tailed off a little bit and didn't quite win. But Lance Lynn is a very solid pitcher. He's a guy that's going to get you innings. He's not necessarily going to throw for, a sub 250 ERA, but he isn't going to screw you out of winning games either.
No. Yeah, I mean, he's career 3.57 ERA. Up until the end of last year, I mean, he had an ERA, I think, of for a while he was like 2 point. He was low twos. As you mentioned, he would have been Cy Young in the first month. Well,
Yeah.
Bieber probably still would have had that, but Lynn would have been second. He's really never been bad. As a Twin, he wasn't very good, and then he's been really good elsewhere. I don't get it. You come to the Twins and you're just not a good pitcher anymore. But he wasn't bad. He was solid. But yeah, he's been solid his whole career. He's very durable. He never misses a start. And as of now, with the acquisition of Lynn, I think that probably catapults the White Sox as the favorites in the Central, especially now that Lindor's gone. I mean, it's between. I mean, I thought it was between the Twins and the White Sox, and now it definitely is. I mean, there's a lot that can happen yet, but the White Sox, as of now, might be the favorite with this Lynn addition. As far as the Rangers, I've seen Dunning a little bit against the Twins. He seemed to do solid against us. They're adding, two guys that could potentially help them now and in the future. I don't think it's a bad trade. I mean, obviously Lynn's a good pitcher, but I mean, if we're being honest, the Rangers probably aren't going to be competing really much in the next 2 or 3 years. So it's not like Lynn's like 24 and you got to hold on to him. So you might as well get something for him. I would assume if Mike Minor does anything like he did 2 years ago, he'll probably be gone by later this year too. We'll see. He's kind of struggled last year, so I'd say it's a good trade all around.
Yeah, I would definitely say so too. I do like the Rangers. Obviously, they're not competing like you said, so they need to try and acquire prospects, get younger guys who they can feel they can work within the organization and try and build on to something great. For the White Sox, though, it's kind of making our predictions and kind of what we've been saying look a lot better. Before last season, I think we were both kind of on the same idea that the White Sox were probably a year out from being a legit playoff team and maybe making a little run. Now, they made the playoffs last year, obviously, in a shortened season, but nonetheless, they still made the playoffs. I think this only helps them even a lot more now to make an actual push.
Yeah, they were slightly better than what I had thought they would be this year. I thought they'd be good, but I didn't think they'd be quite there yet. And then this next season, I thought they'd take the step. Which, yeah, I mean, they still lost the playoff series. They ended up losing the division lead at the end. So, I mean, they were a little better than what I thought, but they still weren't there yet. But especially now with this acquisition and all those young hitters getting even a year older, unfortunately for my Twins, that could mean a White Sox pennant coming.
This White Sox team, though, I think has great potential to be one of the best pitching rotations in baseball. Now you have Lance Lynn, Lucas Giolito, who is one of the most underrated pitchers in baseball, I feel.
No hitter.
And then have guys like Dylan Cease, who's solid, Reynaldo Lopez, and a young pitcher, Michael Kopech, too. And Keuchel as well. So I think this could very well be one of the best rotations in baseball this upcoming top 5, in my opinion, if I'm going to make a prediction here.
Yeah, unfortunately, you're right, and I think they were like 3rd or 4th in runs scored last year, also.
So that's a good combination for the Minnesota Twins, then, right?
Yeah, love it. It's all right. At least we don't have the Padres and Dodgers in our division.
Yeah, that's.
We'll get to those Padres later.
Yeah, that is tough. But anyways. So the Chicago White Sox gained a pitcher and lost a catcher. James McCann signed with the New York Mets for a 4-year deal worth $40.6 million. This man a few years ago wasn't really talked about catcher much. No one really paid too much attention to him. But he had a pretty career year in 2019, hit .273 with 18 home runs. For the White Sox the next season. So really solid player for this team. He's really grown in the zone too. Obviously, you would know more about him than I would. Yeah, what does James McCann bring to the Mets?
He was a Tiger first and then a White Sox. I'm not sure exactly how good defensively he's known for. I mean, I think he's a fairly decent defensive catcher. But, I mean, I'm happy for the guy nonetheless that he's actually going to get he played plenty last year, but he's splitting time with Yasmani Grandal. They had 2 of the best catchers in the league on the same team. So this loss is not that huge for them. I mean, obviously you're losing a good player. It don't matter if you have another catcher. You still don't like losing good guys. But, I mean, they have Grandal. They'll be fine. For the Mets, this is a huge a huge addition. Wilson Ramos, former Twin, was their catcher for the most part last year. He kind of struggled. He didn't do much last year behind in the batter's box. James McCann, as you mentioned, 18 home runs 2 years ago. He was solid this last year. He's really been improving really every year for like 3 years now. And barely over 10 mil a year. Yeah, for a catcher that might seem like a lot, but he deserves it. He's one of the better catchers. That's honestly probably a bargain. So good for him. Fills a hole that the Mets desperately needed. And like I said, not a huge loss for the White Sox because they have another catcher there. It's just the fact they're losing a good quality baseball player.
Yeah. Something that's really rare with a lot of catchers these days is hitting. You're not going to find a lot of catchers that can hold their own. When it comes to hitting, they're not a hitting liability. James McCann can hit the ball. I don't expect him to hit well over 300 with 30-plus home runs every year. But if he can hit around 270, give you 15 some home runs, which he's kind of proven to do the last couple seasons, obviously minus last year, that's what the Mets need. And as long as he can call a good game behind the plate, that's all you're looking for. So we'll have to see how that works out for them.
Yes.
The New York Mets, folks, were not done, as today it was announced that they acquired Francisco Lindor from the Cleveland Indians. So essentially, if we can get, so here is the full assortment of what's going to happen here for the trade. The Indians sent Francisco Lindor and Carlos Carrasco to the Mets for infielders Andres Gimenez and Ahmed Rosario. Rosario, remember, at one point was one of MLB's top prospects in baseball. He's been in the league for a couple years now. Right-hander Josh Wolf and outfielder Isaiah Green. This is something that is a little surprising, but not so much. And I say it in regards to, I don't think anyone was surprised that Lindor got traded because his name has been mentioned in trade talks for it seems like the last 4 seasons. I'm surprised that the Mets were the team that decided to pull the trigger and get Francisco Lindor. Typically, the Mets don't make ginormous splashes in free agency or trades, and when they do, they typically don't pan out. So first off, you have to be exhilarated that Francisco Lindor and Carrasco are both now out of your division.
Yes, I might have to write the Mets a thank you letter. Not only did they take McCann away from the White Sox, which granted, if it wasn't the Mets, it would probably been someone else. He was a free agent. But not only is McCann now not in the AL Central because he's a Met, so are Lindor and Carrasco. And, Lindor, I don't think Lindor's like quite, I mean, obviously the guy's good. Don't get me wrong. I don't think he's quite as good as, he's hyped up to be. I mean, I'd personally take like a Bogarts or maybe even a Corey Seager or, Trevor Story, all them over him. But he's a very good shortstop. He's an all-star shortstop. And he always does good against the Twins. He hits at least 1 home run every series. It seems like he dominates the Twins. So the fact that we don't have to go against him anymore, fine by me. And as for the Mets, I've said it many times. I am always for trading for proven talent and giving up potential talent. If you're the last place team in the league, maybe not. But you are never wrong if you're contending to go trade for proven talent and give up your future, because you never know if they're going to pan out. You just never do. So you get proven talent for potential talent all the time. And Rosario's, you could argue, Rosario's proven. Yeah, he's good, but he's not great. He ain't no Lindor. So they're getting Lindor. And, Carrasco's injury prone, but they have plenty other starters there. Granted, most of them are also injury prone too, but it's not like they need, 30 starts out of Carrasco. As long as they have him there here and there and have him for potential playoff run, that's all they need him for. So the Mets are making a splash. They're definitely going to be competing with the Braves, I'd say, between those two next year for the division.
Now, let me ask you this. Do you think the Mets pull off this trade? Obviously, to get Francisco Lindor is a huge addition, which should be the main reason. but maybe a little reason to try and entice Trevor Bauer to maybe come to the Mets too.
Yeah, I mean, if they were looking for a bargaining chip, that's about as good of one as you will get. I don't think anybody really knows where Bauer is going. I don't know if Bauer knows where Bauer is going. But if the Mets were on his radar, I'm sure they're if they weren't on his radar, I'm sure they are now. And if they were, I'm sure that radar just got a little closer. I guess that analogy wasn't good. But you know what I mean. I mean, the Mets definitely made a splash, and I think Bauer will be aware of it. And they might be the front runner now. I mean, I still think, the Padres making their moves. I mean, you never know with the Dodgers. They don't need him. But, it's the Dodgers. We'll see. I have a feeling it's going to be an NL team. And the Mets right now are looking like a good spot for him.
Just picture for me right now, next season, if everything stays healthy, DeGrom, Syndergaard, Stroman, Bauer, Carrasco. That's nice.
Imagine them in a series against the Padres. You got, let's see, Snell, Paddock, Dinelson, Lamet, Darvish. Well, that's 4. I don't know who their 5th is. Decent, but yeah, I mean, you got and the Braves when healthy, Soroka, Fried. You got some good Dodgers. Obviously, you got some good rotations in the National League right now. And if Bauer goes to the Mets, it's going to be even.
We're going to have some fun baseball to watch this season and matchups that I'm really looking forward to. Great trade. Also, we're talking about a lot Lindor. Let's talk about Carrasco too. He's a very solid pitcher. Obviously, he battled leukemia a couple seasons ago, and that took him out for a decent amount of time. But in his career, 33 years old, 88 and 73 career record with 3.73 ERA. So that is very serviceable and exactly what you want from him. And I think he will be a great addition to that pitching staff too, especially if Syndergaard doesn't
ace type of stuff. He has ace type of stuff.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun team to watch this next season. I'm really looking forward to seeing how that wraps up.
And I assure you, Cleveland will find a way to replace Carlos Carrasco.
They probably already have somebody waiting.
Cleveland, Tampa Bay, and you could probably throw Houston in there too, can go find some rando on the street, put a baseball glove on him, hand him a baseball, and within 2 hours, they'll have a 3.5 ERA in the AL Central. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's a pitching factory in Cleveland. It's unbelievable.
Washington Nationals made a trade for a big bat first baseman. Josh Bell was traded from the Pirates to the Nationals for pitchers Will Crowe and Eddie Yean. Bell, who's 28 years old, fills a void that was left at first base, that they haven't really had a solid presence there. I mean, Zimmerman is kind of getting to the end of his career, and I don't think he's quite the same player that he once was. But that'll help out the heart of the order that I think desperately missed it with Anthony Rendon leaving last season. Now, Bell struggled a lot last season. He had 226, 305, 364, and his strikeout rate was a career high at 26.5%. But putting last season aside, Josh Bell is one of the better young power bats in the game, and I think that's exactly what the Nationals need, is another power bat to help in that line.
As you mentioned, his numbers last year weren't very good. It's hard to really know what to expect from him. I don't like harping on the fact that last year was a shortened season because at the end of the day, it's still baseball. I don't care if it's 60 or 162. It's still baseball. The World Series the Dodgers won is still legitimate. However, yeah, it can be. I mean, an MVP can have a bad 60 games, and you won't really even know it if the other 102 are really good. 60 is pretty small when you're talking about a normal MLB sample. And there was a lot of players who struggled last year. Yelich's stats didn't look good. Bellinger's stats didn't look good. So maybe Bell was just one of those. However, 2019, when he had 37 home runs, and was probably I would imagine he was probably 4th or 5th in MVP, you could argue, well, maybe that was a fluke year. He was decent before that, but he was never anything special before that. So it's hard to say what to expect from him. That being said, if he's even anywhere close to what he was in 2019, definitely an upgrade for the Nationals, and that's quality for anybody else. I mean, and he's a switch hitter. I always like having switch hitters. That makes it hard for managers to, when it comes to the bullpen. Those guys are like righty righty, lefty lefty. I love me some switch hitters. If it's anything like the past Pittsburgh Pirates trades, Josh Bell is going to be amazing. Whoever Pittsburgh gets for him isn't going to pan out. Sorry, Pittsburgh. But yeah, the Nationals added a piece they needed. I don't think I would have got rid of him if I were the Pirates. I mean, I probably would have waited to hope he does a little better, and then you can probably get more for him, or at least see what happens this year. But obviously, I mean, I don't expect him to be very good this next season, or the 2 or 3 after that. But I probably would have waited a little bit. But guys are always more valuable mid-season than they are at the beginning of the season. But that being said, good trade for the Nationals.
For what the Nationals gave up, Baseball America ranked Crow, the pitcher. He was the 10th among Nationals in their farm system, and the team's number 3rd prospect. So obviously, the guy is solid. We'll have to see what happens with him. He had a 6.17 ERA in his one AAA experience, but apparently it was a really hitter-friendly stadium, and potential juice balls. Obviously, everyone always talks about that too. But we'll have to see what happens. The other one, a 19-year-old, it's kind of a long-term play for them there. You put him in the system, let him grow within the Pirate system, and see what happens there. So we'll have to see what happens. Like I said, Bell obviously being a switch hitter, that could be very beneficial for the Nationals. He is, from what I've seen, much better lefty hitter than he is a righty hitter. Yeah, but to have the versatility is huge.
Yeah, typically those switches are much, much better at one end than the others. Sometimes they're better average-wise from one side, better power from the other. Yep. But, I mean, regardless, I personally really like having switches. Cleveland Indians, for example, they just got rid of Lindor, obviously, but Lindor, Carlos Santana, and Jose Ramirez are all switch hitters, which means potentially the best 3 hitters were all switchies, and it's a nightmare when you got to go to the bullpen. For people who really like the righty-righty matchups and the lefty-lefty matchups, I know I personally do. Whenever I play MLB The Show, for instance, I definitely try to match up like that. Some people don't care about it, but I think it's important, and there's nothing you can do about it when a guy's a switch hitter.
So moving on now, the San Diego Padres might made themselves a legit contender this season. They acquired, we'll get to 2 of them. This is the first one, Blake Snell from the Tampa Bay Rays, for players Luis Patino and Francisco Mejia, and then the prospects they received as well with that, Blake Hunt and Cole Wilcox. Ginormous move for the Padres. Obviously, Snell is 2 years removed from a Cy Young Award, where he had posted a 2.85 ERA across 337 innings the last 3 seasons. He struck out 32.1% of opposing hitters and holding them to a 206, 279, 350 slash line. He was obviously kind of the main horse behind the Tampa Bay Rays that got to the World Series. Glasnow was a phenomenal pitcher. Moore was a phenomenal pitcher. But at the end of the day, Blake Snell was the dude. Even though they took him out in the World Series in the most important game, they took him out. I don't know why. But anyways.
Analytics, man.
Analytics. So that is a huge thing. And we'll get to you, Darvish, in a second. And then we'll talk about the Padres as a whole. But for right now, how much do you like this move for both sides?
I mean, you got a former Cy Young winner at it, and you added it to an already good starting rotation. I mean, I don't know what more can be said. They were 8th in the league last year in ERA. You just added a guy who won Cy Young 3 years ago, had a 3.2. So get this, 3.24 ERA last year, 3.24 career ERA. Same. Balled out in Game 7 of the World, or no, was that Game 7? Game 6? 6, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Balled out in a winner go home Game 6 World Series game. And then, he's going to get in a rotation with all those other studs. I mean, I'd be pumped if I were a Padres fan. And I believe they had the second best record in the National League without him last year, second or third. Obviously, that wasn't enough for the division because they got the Dodgers, but Snell is going to be just one of two additions that might make the Padres the best rotation in the league. Obviously, the Mets have something to say about that now. We just talked about that, but we shall see.
This is some of the players, too, that the Tampa Bay Rays acquired. I am never, like I said before, I will never, ever question a trade that the Tampa Bay Rays do
kind of like the Patriots as of like 5 years ago.
For the rest of my life. I'm never going to question it because it seems like, man, they get rid of a big-name guy. Well, one of the guys that they got is an MVP or Cy Young candidate. So,
and then a lot of times the guys they trade, like Shields was never anything much afterwards. Archer never really was. Casimir, but I mean, he had injury problems. David Price was good.
Yeah.
And even Longoria faded out, even the non-pitchers, which means I honestly think it's more so just the fact that Tampa Bay just makes a pitcher that much better. If I was talking about Cleveland being a pitching factory, well, Tampa Bay is probably the best at excelling a pitcher to his top level of any team in baseball, and I think that's part of the reason why. But with that being said, I mean, like I said, they'll find somebody to replace Snell. But with that being said, it's got to be awful to be a Rays, very frustrating to be a Rays fan. They just so little. They spend so little money in a league where some teams spend almost like $200 million, I think. And like as soon as they get somebody good, they're gone in 3 years. Longoria was there for like probably 8. That's like the exception, Casimir wasn't there. Casimir was there a while, but Crawford got traded, Price got traded, Shields got traded. I mean, even Delman Young, who was Rookie of the Year, was only there 2 or 3 years. I mean, it's got to be frustrating, very frustrating.
It does. It's hard to.
Even Archer, he didn't pan out, but I mean, he was good and he was gone.
I am not the Colorado Rockies are my number 1 team. Rays are definitely my second team and my first American League team. As you have seen, I have a Will Myers jersey from when he was on the Tampa Bay Rays.
Him too.
My thought process behind that was, out of all the players' jerseys I could get, which one is the least likely to get traded the quickest? And I'm like, well, Will Myers is a rookie. I'm going to get his jersey. And, well, he got traded. So
if you're talking the Rays, I'd say like the 8th best player on the team. Not a prospect, but not one of the top players. Get that guy's jersey.
We'll have to see how this goes. But as far as what the Rays got back in return, Patino made his major league debut last year. He only pitched 17 innings due to had an ERA over 5, but he had only thrown 7 2/3 innings above A ball entering the season, and probably would have had more minor league time if the minor league teams had a season this last year. Hunt as well has emerged as a top 100 caliber prospect. He has been hitting to all fields with power is what I've seen. And he was the 20th among the Padres farm system. Mejia was an elite catching prospect himself too, was one of the best ones out there. As you remember, the Brad Hand trade that sent the Padres pitcher to the Indians, Mejia was involved in that trade to the Padres. Now he's heading to the Tampa Bay Rays. So maybe they can get some consistency there. So we'll have to see.
That pitching prospect will probably be a Cy Young winner in 4 years.
Probably not. We'll have to see what happens with this. I love this a lot, especially for the San Diego Padres. And now we can move into the other move that they made, and that is acquiring pitcher Yu Darvish from the Chicago Cubs. So the Padres acquired pitcher Yu Darvish and catcher Victor Caratini. To the Cubs goes Zach Davies, Owen Cassie, Ismael Mena, Reginald Presadio, and Yason Santana. I probably butchered at least three of the 4 names there, so apologize to any friends or family of those people listening to this. But this came right after the Blake Snell one happened, and they were ready to go to try and get another pitcher here. So This is how their pitching rotation is probably going to look on opening day now. Snell is probably going to be the number one. I would
Yeah.
assume Darvish is the 2. Paddock or Lamet, 3 or
Probably
4,
Lamet.
doesn't really matter. And then they have Adrian Morion, who apparently was a solid pitcher as well too. Now they also have really young and great pitchers in Mackenzie Gore and Ryan Weathers too. So look for those guys to maybe come up at some point during the season. And don't forget, folks, even though he won't be playing this year, Mike Clevenger is also on the roster too.
Oh my goodness.
So you wait till, you look at this season, and this season looks good. Next season, I'm upset that I have to play them in my division like 20-some games because I'm not looking forward to that.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, Gore, I'd say it's unlikely because he's way up there. I mean, he might be the best pitching prospect in baseball, but he might even potentially be traded. I mean, they have so many good pitchers. They're going to be in it. If they can acquire somebody for one of their top pitching prospects, I wouldn't be surprised if they do that too. Get some really good hitter. But yeah, it's crazy. I mean, they got how many proven pitchers already, and then they got good ones coming up yet too. It's a good time to be a Padres fan. Hasn't had many years where you can say that.
No, most of those years being within the last 2 or 3 that you can't say that. But as far as the Yu Darvish trade goes, how do you like this for the Padres, and what does that mean for the Cubs?
I mean, when you're in baseball with no salary cap, you're good, and you just acquire somebody that's going to make you even better. I don't know how you can't be happy. Caratini, I didn't even realize he was a part of that till you said that right now. I mean, it's always nice to have good catchers. He's a quality catcher. You can never have too many of them. Tough to say how Darvish is going to do, but I can assure you he's at least going to be solid. I mean, he's got a 3.98 career ERA. I think 2019 was like his only not very good season, but he followed up, I believe, his worst season ERA wise with a 2.01 ERA this past year. If Bauer didn't win Cy Young, it was either going to be DeGrom or Darvish. So Darvish had a very, very solid year. I mean, he's getting up there, but he's still only 33. I mean, there's plenty left in that arm. And he's proven he can pitch in the National League. You know, sometimes people switch leagues and they're not very good, but he's been in the National League for, 2 years now? 2+ years. So I wouldn't be worried about that. Yeah, he's going to be quality for them, and I'd be awfully happy to be a Padres fan.
Yeah, I'm looking forward, but also not looking forward to seeing how this team does.
Potentially the best 2 teams in the entire Major League Baseball are in your division. Good luck with that.
Well, I'll tell you this, Nick, that at the end of the season, I'll have good insight on how both of these teams are once the playoffs come around. So I can give you good insight at the end of the year, folks. The
Padres have 6 starters better than you guys got 1. So how does that make you feel?
Herman Marquez is probably better than maybe their 5th.
True. You
got 4th maybe.
You got the best hitting pitcher of all of them.
That's true, and at the end of the day, that's all that matters, right?
Whatever pitching staff can hit better.
Oh man, my life as a Rockies fan is quite depressing, to say the least.
That's all right. We watched 07 over again the other day.
We did. That brought me a little glimmer of hope that maybe the Rockies somewhat know what they're doing, but I wouldn't.
We didn't even have the swept in the World Series clip, so
Yep, that's true. You're a good person, Nick. Good person.
It makes you feel better. The Twins highlight I watched, we didn't even win, so
I suppose that's fair.
Being a Rockies fan is rough, which I'm sure it is. The Twins have 2 World Series. Only thing Minnesota can be proud of in the sports world, but I wasn't even around for that. If you think being a Rockies fan is rough, just try being a Twins fan while watching a playoff game anytime in the last 17 seasons, or no, 16, or watching the Twins play the Yankees, specifically in the playoffs. It's rough. So, yeah. I don't invite you into that.
And if you did invite me, I would not accept either. I'm not sure.
But I'm glad I don't have to deal with the Dodgers and Padres right now, though. So.
Yep. Consider yourself lucky. Well, the Cleveland Indians just traded Francisco Lindor away, so maybe I'll get lucky and the Dodgers will trade away Mookie Betts or something like that.
Yeah, and then the Rockies will trade Nolan Arenado.
Yep. Yeah. If Arenado is on the Rockies by the end of this season, I will probably be a little surprised. But
really?
Yeah.
It would never happen, but if Arenado got traded to the Dodgers, what would you do?
Oh, I will probably be locking myself in my room for a week, taking all the PTO I have in the 1 week and not talking to anyone because I'll be in a state of depression that no one wants to see.
Just crying for a week.
Yeah.
Arenado traded to the Dodgers.
I know the Rockies are a poorly run franchise and they make a lot of stupid decisions, but I do not think they would be that stupid to trade him to a division rival. But you know what? I have been wrong before with the Rockies, and I will probably be wrong again.
They know they'll miss him so much immediately that they still want to be able to play him 18 times a year so they can see him.
Oh, man. Okay, well, we can move into some non-depressing stuff and some basketball news here. Rudy Gobert signed a 5-year, $205 million extension with the Utah Jazz. That is the largest deal for a center in league history.
Wow.
Gobert, obviously not known much for his offensive prowess as much as his defensive prowess. He has won Defensive Player of the Year a few times now. Extremely solid centerpiece for that Jazz team. Do you like this for the Jazz? Do you think he should have gotten less? How do you feel overall about this deal?
I mean, the way all the professional leagues are going right now, at least the big three, salary caps, contracts just keep going up and up. So, I mean, if it's a quality player, he's one of the best centers in the game. You can't really say it's too much. I mean, if they don't give it to him, somebody else is going to. It's just the way it is now. Gobert is very good. I mean, he's not what you think of as like an offensive weapon, but he's still so good at clearing space and getting offensive rebounds that he averages. I don't have the stats, but I'm willing to bet he averaged at least 17 or 18 points a game last year. He's, potentially the best defender in all of basketball. I believe he was DPOY 2 years in a row until Giannis got it last year. And I don't watch a lot of Jazz games, but as far as who's the most important part of that team, it's debatable. That's a team where they don't really have that, like, if they didn't have Donovan Mitchell, they wouldn't really have a guy where you could just say, here's the ball, go score. So there's a good argument to be made for Mitchell. But I think Gobert is definitely the best player on that team. He is very solid. I don't think he's really missed many games in his career either. That's always a big positive. And yeah, good for him. That's a lot of money.
Rudy Gobert in his career has averaged just over 11 points a game.
What was it last year?
Last year he averaged 15.1 and 15.9.
That's a little high, but yeah, it's gone up.
It's at 13.9 this year. But again, obviously, I don't think anyone necessarily is looking for Gobert to be an offensive threat as much as he is a defensive threat and game planning for that. I think Mitchell definitely takes a lot of that away from him. But we'll have to see what happens here. Again, Gobert is extremely solid defender. Like you mentioned, one of, if not the best in the league. His length is great. And, we'll have to see what happens with this. Fun fact, too, Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell were both drafted by the Nuggets to then be traded to the Utah Jazz on draft night. Now, I'm not too upset because we have Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray to kind of forget about him. But at the time, it was like, okay, well, hopefully this doesn't turn out to be great players. And they both are pretty solid.
And as far as a duo, that's very close. I'd probably lean Denver because Nikola Jokic, especially showing this year, is very, very good.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's two very good duos right there. Very similar.
And that was the only bit of basketball talk. We can move into some football now. Carson Wentz, folks, he wants to be traded if he is not a starter. Now, this was a couple weeks ago. He had come out with that. Now, Jalen Hurts has been the starter. Jalen Hurts will probably be the starter next season if Carson Wentz is still on the team. Even if he isn't, he definitely will be. So, Carson Wentz being gone, more than likely, first off, do you think he will get traded? Number two, in your opinion, who is the best fit scenario for Carson Wentz to get traded to?
I think he will get traded because it's not like they're going to wait out his contract or anything. It's huge, and I'm pretty sure he just signed an extension not too long ago. So I would imagine 3 or 4 years down the road yet. And I don't think they're going to start him, so there's definitely no point in hanging on to a contract like that if you're not even going to start him. And if he doesn't even want to be there if he's not starting, I don't see why they wouldn't trade him. So yes, I do think he will get traded. And I'm sure I'm just going to steal your take from you, but you mentioned the Colts the other day, and I mean, look, this is a team who literally just went out and got a veteran quarterback because got a roster. They lost Luck, and they had a roster to win it all. Potentially, they just needed a quarterback. So you're not going to just try to groove in a rookie when you have what you need necessary elsewhere to win now. So they went and got Rivers, but will Rivers be there next year? Probably, but maybe not. And I don't know how good Rivers will be next year anyways. I'm not a huge Rivers as of like 2 or 3 years ago. I didn't think Rivers was that good anyways, but I no longer think Carson Wentz is very good either. So it's debatable who's better anyways. But potentially Indy is a good fit. It kind of depends on what Rivers decides this year. Besides that, I think, well, Houston, because Deshaun Watson, as they said today, might want out. I'm guessing they're not going to want to take on Carson Wentz's contract, though. If they trade Watson, I'm guessing they're just going to start over. But potentially Houston, so that division. The Jaguars potentially, no, forget I said that. They're getting Lawrence. Probably, I'm looking at probably Indy, maybe a long shot Houston. Other than that, Jets, because I don't think they've really decided yet on whether they want to go with Darnold or yet. I think they're going to draft quarterback this year, but I wouldn't be surprised if they say, let's give Darnold another go. They draft Penny Sewell, and then if they realize, no, we want to move on from him, then they'll just go get Wentz. But as of now, it's kind of hard to predict as of now. But I definitely think he will be elsewhere at the very least 2 years from now, probably next year already.
Yeah, Carson Wentz, and obviously, you did steal the team that I had to go to. Maybe I should have gone first, so I would have looked like the smarter guy here. But yes, I also do believe Carson Wentz to Indy would be the best fit for him. I don't know if that's necessarily what the Eagles are thinking or the most logical, but in my head, I think it is. Look at it this way. The Philadelphia Eagles, Philadelphia is a very high-stress town. The fans love the sports there. They're extremely passionate about sports. We know how passionate Philly sports fans can be when their teams are playing well, especially when they play the Vikings. Now,
that we do.
With that, and with the amount of injuries that Philadelphia has had the last couple seasons, with not a very stable offensive line, you put Carson Wentz out of Philly in Indianapolis, a lower market team, a team that doesn't get a lot of media attention. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure still very passionate fans, but not to the extent that I'm talking with Philadelphia fans. He can kind of go there, do his thing behind arguably the best offensive line of football, Indianapolis Colts, have a great number one in T.Y. Hilton, a solid running attack with Jonathan Taylor, Marlon Mack when he comes back maybe, and other guys is there as well too. So I like this a lot for Carson Wentz. I think it's a great fit if he goes to Indianapolis. I think it makes the most sense for me at least, and for him.
As far as fit for him, yes, that's definitely number one. As far as what team is best fit, what team is best fit for Carson Wentz, definitely Indianapolis. As far as what team kind of needs him most, it's kind of up in the air. I really don't know. But as far as which team is best for Carson Wentz's personal success, it's definitely Indianapolis.
Okay.
Because,
yeah.
as you mentioned, they have the quality O-line, and, every team in the NFL has better weapons than the Eagles do practically right now. But yeah, so for Wentz, I think that would be, if he could go anywhere, that would be the spot he should probably want to go. As far as who should actually go and get him, I don't really know yet.
Yeah. Move on now to another NFC East team. Extremely sad day on the Dorton and Doetkott Debate podcast, folks. Dwayne Haskins was released of his contract from the Washington football team. Now, let me say this.
Before this.
This is phenomenal for Dwayne Haskins. It's a poorly run franchise. We all know that. Now he has a chance to go to another team and thrive, be that solid player that I think he can be. Now, for the reasons that he wasn't let go, it doesn't look good on him. You know what? Went to a strip club and didn't wear a mask. You know what? That's not a smart move, okay? That's not a smart move. Okay? Did he play the best? No, he didn't. But it's the Washington football team. So what can you expect? He doesn't have the team and the management around him to have the potential that he can have.
You done yet?
I'm done.
I'm sorry, did you say what can you expect? That team is in the playoffs, dog. Without him.
Yeah, well, you know what?
With him?
You know what? If he was a starter, you know that is a Super Bowl caliber team in Washington.
He was a starter for like 2 weeks, and then he was so trash. Alex Smith, who's got a bionic leg, is in there. I mean, okay. Lucas, 2 numbers. Let's see. I got to find him here. 12 and 14.
Okay.
Which one's his touchdown total and which one's his interception total? Neither one is good.
Hey.
14 interceptions and 12 touchdowns in 13 starts.
The man,
less touchdowns and starts and more interceptions than starts.
Hey, listen. When Terry McLaurin, solid player. Don't get me wrong. This is not a Terry McLaurin diss track.
Don't bash Scary Terry now.
I like Scary Terry. But with him being the number one there, the defenses are going to lock up on him. It's going to be tougher to get those passes to him because they don't have anyone else to throw to. So put Dwayne Haskins on a team that has more than one solid weapon, and he will thrive. I promise you that.
Washington's got a tight end who nobody even knew of 5 weeks ago because Dwayne Haskins was throwing the football to him. Now Alex Smith is in there, and Thomas is balling out. The dude was like a basketball player. He was a quarterback, and now he's balling out as a tight end because Dwayne Haskins ain't throwing him the football.
Well, all I'm saying is this
guys,
is going to be
I told this man many, many times a long time ago that he was crazy for thinking Haskins would succeed in the NFL. He's not good. I mean, I don't mean to bash Dwayne Haskins. He's obviously a better football player than me. But he's not an NFL quarterback. He just isn't, okay? And I told you that. I was right. His team is now in the playoffs without him. And, yeah. Oh, also, 60.1 completion percentage. I mean, that's not terrible. I'll give him that. But it's not good.
So we have something to build off of. Let me say this. This
the
is going
dude
to
got
be
released from a team who doesn't even have a name.
This is going to be the worst decision the Washington football franchise will ever make in their entire existence.
Okay, Josh Rosen.
Hey, don't diss my boy Josh Rosen either. We will have no Josh Rosen slander on this podcast. But anyway.
Oh, my goodness.
So Dwayne Haskins got released. Move over to
Okay, you're telling me if Dwayne Haskins was the Dolphins starting quarterback next year, you'd be happy.
Well, he isn't because Tua Tagovailoa is.
Yeah, way to dodge that one.
Tua's our starter, so I don't have to think about that.
Is he? I don't think people wanted him to be the starter week 7.
Yeah, well, you know what? People aren't the GM or the head coach. They're idiots.
But you wish you could be the OC though, right?
Yes, he actually just resigned, so there is an opening there.
I bet you were a happy man.
I was a very happy man.
Know who else were happy men and women alike? Washington fans and Dwayne Haskins got released.
Yeah, you're a hater. We're moving off of this topic. I can't hear you slander Dwayne Haskins any longer than you already have. The Philadelphia Eagles. A little bit of conspiracy behind them, as Week 17 was a big game. Not necessarily for them, as they were already out of the playoffs, but if they would have won and beat the Washington football team, then the New York Giants would have been the final spot in the playoffs. If they lost, which they did, then the Washington football team would have gotten that spot, and they are now in the playoffs. Now, why do I say controversy? Well, in a very close competitive game, the Eagles decided to take out Jalen Hurts for no apparent reason. He was healthy. Was he throwing the ball best? No, but they were keeping him in the game. To put in backup Sudfeld, who did absolutely nothing in that game. He was awful. And Carson Wentz was not dressed for the game.
Better than Dwayne Haskins would have done. But...
Hey, what did I just say? And anyways, they decide to bench him for Sudfeld. Now, they end up losing the game. Now that locked up the number 6 spot in the NFL draft for the Philadelphia Eagles. Looked like a blatant wanting to lose on purpose so they could get a better draft position and essentially screwing the New York Giants. Now, obviously, we don't know if Hurts stays in the game. Did the Eagles win? I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe Washington still wins. But do they have a much higher chance to win with him being in there versus Nate Sudfeld? 100% yes.
Mm-hmm.
So what does it look like to you, and what is your comments on this situation as a whole?
I mean, after the game, Peterson said, I don't know what he said word by word, but essentially Sudfeld's been with us a long time, I believe like 4 years. I wanted to give him the opportunity. Is that true? Maybe. I mean, it's not really for us to say yes or no. However, I have a feeling if he were going to do that, I honestly think he would have said something. A lot of times in a meaningless game, it's kind of like preseason game. Oh, I'm going to play this guy half, going to play this guy half. I mean, maybe not. But it seems like if that were the case, it wouldn't have been like just randomly at that time. It would be like the first possession of the second half or something like that, or first possession of the fourth quarter, which granted it was practically the fourth quarter. But I just don't see why you'd give him one quarter. So it seems a little like, I don't know about that. If that's truly what his reasoning was, then that's not for us to say. I mean, they were out of it. You could say it was playing for next year, or just doing a guy a solid. But I'd say that's highly suspect. And if they truly were just doing it to, essentially almost try to lose, that's not good. Now here, I've been saying teams should tank. Now granted, it's technically against the rules. You should not go against the rules. But there's a difference between not actually trying to not win, and a difference between, trading everybody away to, I guess, how am I saying this? Like, if you're the Marlins, essentially, just trading away all your good players to completely start over, and maybe you're doing it for the sole reason to get a good pick, maybe, but you're still going to try when your players are on the floor, on the court, and you're still going to put what you have best available out there. The Eagles were literally at one point in the game making themselves worse in a 3-point game, and essentially looked like they almost tried to lose. And it's obviously very suspect. Now, with that being said, Giants have, I understand the frustration. I'd be very frustrated. I will say this: if you want to make the playoffs, don't go 6-10.
Yeah.
But I mean, yes, they still had a chance to make it, and essentially Philadelphia not necessarily costed them the playoff spot, but potentially costed them a playoff spot, and it just wasn't really right what they did. I still have a feeling Washington would have won. I mean, after all, they were winning at the time.
Right.
Hurts wasn't necessarily playing that well. He did have 2 rush touchdowns. But And there was also a 4th and goal at like the 4, down by 3, right before Sudfeld came in, where they could have kicked a field goal to tie it, and they didn't. Which normally I'm all for going it, but in that situation, I don't know why you wouldn't tie it. So that was suspect too. So yeah, it's not a good look. I'm wondering if the NFL is going to punish him. I mean, it's kind of hard because you can't necessarily prove it.
Yeah.
I mean, so I don't know if they necessarily should be punished, but it's definitely not a good look. I understand the frustration from Giants fans, but at the end of the day, Washington, although they finished 7-9, deserved to win that division compared to the other 3 teams, and I'm glad they did.
Yeah, me too. How funny would this be? Eagles tank to get the 6th pick. The NFL punishment as they take away their first round pick for this next season.
Ooh, they'd be like, didn't think that went through. Watch the Eagles and Giants play week 1 next year.
Yeah. Anyways, that's fun thought. Move on to some coach firings. Boy, am I happy to announce this one. Well, actually, I am a little sad that the New York Jets fired head coach Adam Gase after going 2-14 this season.
There will be no negative talk of Adam Gase on this podcast, Lucas.
I am disappointed. I was very happy that he was the coach of the Jets. It was 2 really easy wins that the Miami Dolphins had against them every time we played them. Gase, it's really unfortunate that they went gone, that he got fired, was 9-23 in 2 seasons and a franchise record, 13-game losing streak to start 2020. Yeah.
I'll give him this. 32-48 is his record. That is not good. That's, 3 losses every 2 wins. It's better than I thought, though. Like, it's because he went 10-6 that year with Miami. I'm like, okay, 32-48 by no means is good, but it's definitely better than I thought. I mean, that's not Hugh Jackson territory. But yeah, I mean, he's clearly not a very good coach. He should have been gone, last year. Obviously, for the Jets, they should be happy Jets fans should be happy that he's gone. I mean, nothing against the guy, but he clearly was not doing a good job as a coach, and maybe you get the job somewhere else as a coordinator or something, but I don't think he'll be a head coach in the future. He's young enough. He's 42, but it'll be in the very distant future if it is, because I don't think he was very highly talked about as a head coach. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Adam Gase, I'm not really going to spend too much time talking about him because there is no surprise in the world that this guy was fired. And I agree 100% that he's not going to have a head coaching job anytime soon. Coordinator job, maybe. I don't know if I'd give him an offensive coordinator job because his offense finished 32nd in the league the last 2 seasons. So maybe give it a couple years and wait. But anyways, if you are a head coach or a coach that maybe the Jets are looking at you to be their head coach, is this an intriguing position to be a head coach of?
I don't know if it's intriguing, but I don't think it's bad. Essentially, when you take over a team who's been this bad, I think it normally means you have at least like a 3-year window. For Freddie Kitchens, that was not the case in Cleveland. But like, if you take over the Jets job, you go 2-14 next year. It's not like you're going to get fired because, I mean, it's practically what they've done the last 2 years. It's not like you decline them. You could probably go 2-14 for 2 years and still keep your job. I mean, Hugh Jackson did in Cleveland. So it at least gives you probably like 3 years of job security. But, it's New York. You're not the Giants, but you're still in New York. I'm technically New Jersey, but, you're going to get scrutinized. You don't have a lot of talent there, but you potentially can have a new quarterback coming in. If not, you have the 2nd overall pick. I still think Darnold's got talent. I don't think he's ever going to be what I thought, but I still think he's got talent. He just never really been in there consistent, never really had much help. Maybe he could potentially do something. But I mean, there's not much to work with, so I'd say it's definitely not the job I would want compared to some other ones. But I mean, it's not the worst head coaching job in the world, if that means anything. I mean, I'd rather have Atlanta's personally, but.
Now one more. We'll bash Adam Gase one more time here, just because I think it's funny. Here's a stat for you: Gase, obviously, who was an offensive and a quarterback guru coming in. His offense, Nick, ranked 32nd in 24 out of the 34 regular season weeks from the start of the 2019 season.
Oh my gosh.
So there were 10 weeks from the beginning of his tenure to the end of his tenure where his offense was not ranked the worst.
Ouch.
That's awful.
Ouch.
Anyways, mic drop. Let's move on to the next coach firing. Doug Marrone, the former head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars, was fired. He went 1-15 this season. Not a phenomenal coach, kind of an offensive line guy where he got his start. Now was the head coach with them for a few seasons. He fired. Not a whole lot of surprise here. I don't think you or I are really surprised by this move at all. Now, this one is a move that I think has a lot of interest for a potential head coach. One name, and I want to get your opinion, you've probably heard it, I don't know if you have, that has been linked to the Jaguars is Urban Meyer. Now, I have heard this. I want to get your take on this. What's the likelihood that is Urban Meyer the favorite to go there, or do you think they look elsewhere?
I personally don't think so. He's been linked to college jobs every year since he left Ohio State. He left Florida young. He left Ohio State still young as far as coaching. I'm just not sure he really wants to coach. I think he works for the Big Ten. He seems like that. Maybe he does. I'm not Urban Meyer. I can't tell you. Maybe he just didn't want to coach college anymore. Maybe he wants to take on a new opportunity in the NFL. He was in Florida as a college coach. Maybe he wants to. I'm not sure where the guy lives. I have no idea. Maybe he wants to. I would say it's unlikely, but we'll see. He's used to working with good quarterbacks. He obviously had Tebow and Barrett, Haskins, I think.
Fields was on the roster a little bit too.
They haven't really had much success. I think he recruited Burrow. They haven't had much success in the NFL. Not that that really matters. He's not coaching them in the NFL. He's coaching them in college. But I would say I personally don't think it's going to happen. I think it's not likely. But I have heard that name, and if he truly is interested and wants it, I'd say he probably will get it. I'm just not really confident he's going to want it.
I'm not sure he would either. It's tough to turn a franchise around and a culture around. Jacksonville has a losing culture.
If you want a fresh start, try it out in the NFL.
You get Trevor Lawrence.
There's no fresher start than a 1-15 Jaguars team with, the number 1 overall pick. You get to start from scratch essentially with probably the best quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck. So.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they decide to go with there. My guess is I would probably like to assume that Jacksonville does not go with Urban Meyer. I think you're probably right. Meyer's probably content with doing his analyst stuff and staying with the Big Ten Network there, but we'll have to see what happens as far as that goes.
I think they should. Bieniemy, he's an OC, right?
Yep, with the Chiefs. Yep.
Yeah, I think they should go with him. So Trevor Lawrence is that guy. On that guy telling him what to do, but that's only me.
And the final head coach that was fired, Anthony Lynn from the LA Chargers. He signed a 1-year extension in the offseason, but the Chargers went 7-9. They lost 7 of their 9 games, all by 1 score. So that's tough. That's tough. They made a valiant effort at the end of the season. They won their last 4 games, but the owner, Dean Spanos, pretty much said, sorry about it, you're still gone.
They seem to lose by 1 possession every year, and especially when you've done it 2 or 3 times with Anthony Lynn, at some point it's okay. It's the coaching part of this. A lot of times, if you lose that many close games, coaching does have something to do with it. You'd say whether it does or not, I don't know. But at some point you got to move on. This team's got too much talent to continually not perform up to it, just like Atlanta most of the time, just like Minnesota a lot of times. Chargers have a lot of talent. Yeah, they did go 7-9, which isn't that bad, but I think, like you said, went to like 4-9 or something like that. They, just kind of won at the end there. I think it was time. I wouldn't have said it was a bad move if they did keep him. I mean, I don't think he's a bad coach. He's just maybe not that. He's just maybe not a great coach. I'd say he's average. But yeah, I think it's a good idea to move on. As far as who they're going to get, I don't know. As far as who they should get, haven't really thought about it much yet, to be honest. It's easy to say offensive coach, and normally I go offense, especially nowadays offense when you have a young quarterback. But you supply a good quarterback with a good defense, give him a good defensive coach with some good defenders, Ingram, Bosa, James over there. Maybe you want to do that. I'm not really sure, but that's probably I'd say easily the best coaching job available by far. You got Justin Herbert, who's already proven.
Yep.
The only downfall is you have the Chiefs in your division.
Right. Yeah.
Who are going to be good for a long time.
If I'm a head coach, I'm really looking forward to do this job. And maybe Bieniemy decides to stay within the division and goes with the Chargers. He plays against the Chiefs twice a year, and he'll know their system, kind of know their strengths.
Honestly, the Chargers should look into that. Chargers should see if he's interested in that. I didn't think of that.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens. It's a very enticing job, and I'm intrigued to see who might get it. So that's all.
Jason Garrett's been linked to that, right?
I'm not sure if he has.
I'm pretty sure I heard Jason Garrett's linked to the Chargers job right now.
But anyways, we'll have to see what happens with that. Anyways, so moving on from NFL to a few hockey-related news here. Zadeno Chara signs a contract with the Washington Capitals, ending his tenure as captain and a player on the Boston Bruins. Obviously, I don't think a lot of people were necessarily surprised that he was gone. They weren't going to bring him back. Just kind of want a fresh scenery here for him and see what can happen. I'm excited to see how he does with the Capitals. Ginormous defenseman. He's not the quickest, but when you're that big, how fast can you actually be on skates? But we'll have to see what happens this year, and then happy for him that a team was able to take a chance on him and decided to.
Yeah, I'm pumped. Washington's forever been my second team. If we're being honest, they're darn near my first team.
Yeah.
Because I love me some Alexander Ovechkin. The Capitals finally got over the hump and won it, I believe, 2 years ago? 3 maybe already. And, they still got a lot of good guys over there, and they're competitive, and Chara's going to help them. He only had 17 points last season. But, it's Zadeno Chara. I'm not going to not want the guy on my team. He's like Andre the Giant on skates. He's a former Norris Trophy winner, top 3 6 times. He's a future Hall of Famer. Yeah, he's 43. Yager was 75 and was still quality for the Panthers. So, he can still give you quality. 656 career points. He's obviously got veteran savvy. He's obviously been around, done that. He can help out some young guys. Not that Carlson needs help. But I love it. And not only is Capitals gaining him, that means Boston's not going to have him, and that's obviously one of their biggest competitors in the East.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm happy. I like it.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Maybe it'll give Zadeno Chara one more chance to win a ring before he decides to hang up the skates. Very respected player, been around our league a long time and has done it right all these years. So we'll have to see what happens as far as that goes. And the other piece of hockey news, which I didn't add this to our listener talking about it, but I have to talk about it, was the Team USA winning the gold medal at the 2021 World Juniors Championship. This was an exhilarating matchup. Team Canada went into the gold medal match as a heavy favorite, and they were looking to win their second straight World Juniors Championship. And they had gone undefeated in the 6 previous games, twice scoring in the double digits. So this team was no joke. They were looking to win again, and they certainly probably should have. USA had 3 shutouts in the tournament, but they did lose to Russia in the preliminary rounds and had a close call against Finland in the semifinal, but they still ended up winning. What ended up happening essentially was a shutout. Their goaltender, Spencer Knight, was 34 for 34, had a shutout, and they were just, and despite the fact Team USA only being held to just 6 shots in the second period and 1 shot in the third, but they could not score on Knight. Kings prospect Alex Doetkott scored the first goal for Team USA, and Trevor Zegras also scored as well, too, 30 seconds into the second period. They had other chances by some other prospects, but they weren't able to end up coming away with it. Trevor Zegras, who's an Anaheim Ducks prospect, was named the 2021 World Juniors Most Valuable Player. He led scoring with 18 points, 7 goals, and 11 assists.
Good.
So congrats to Team USA. I believe now this is their 5th World Juniors Championship, if I'm not mistaken. The first one since 2017, I think, was the last time they won it. So not an incredible amount of time in between last championship and this one. But considering Team Canada being a huge, heavy favorite.
Anytime you can beat Canada in hockey, you did something right.
You did something right, and they definitely did. So congrats to all of those guys to win. To win that's a huge accomplishment, and exciting to see a lot of these young players who are on these teams make their way up into the NHL and to see what they can do in the league.
Mm-hmm.
And end of the show, predictions are always fun, and we're going to do that here. College football championship predictions here. No Clemson, folks. The Ohio State Buckeyes going up against the Alabama Crimson Tide. Nick, who do you have?
Number 1 versus number 11, right?
Yep, number 11, according to Dabo Swinney from the Clemson Tigers.
I've seen somebody's comment on Facebook. They're so good that he gave them 2 1s.
Oh, man, that's not...
I mean...
But predictions, who do you think wins and why? I don't think it's hard.
I predict Roll Tide because they're Alabama. I mean, that's probably a pretty bad take, but I hadn't picked against Tom Brady and the Patriots in about 10 years. I don't pick against Nick Saban and Alabama. I just don't do it. It's not to say they never lose, but lately the only teams they've lost to are Clemson, who they're not playing. I guess they did lose to Ohio State about 4 years ago. But they look very, 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 very dominant. 3 of the top 5 Heisman finalists and the winner were Alabama. I don't think anybody's come within like 15 points of them all year. Well, except Florida did in the championship game, but it was kind of, at the end, regardless. But Ohio State's looked pretty dominant as well. However, Northwestern somewhat stymied that offense. Indiana played them tough. I'd say the line's at about what it should be. I would not be shocked if Ohio State wins, but Alabama's got so much firepower. They played more games. They should be. I don't care that Ohio State only played 6 or 7 games. The people complaining about that, that's just petty.
They obviously showed they were deserving after winning.
Yeah, and some people say, they don't have wear and tear on them. Well, I almost think the more games of Alabama's an advantage rather than a disadvantage. They've been playing with each other. It's not like these guys have been playing with each other since high school. A lot of guys, they've never even played with each other. You didn't even have that much practice this year. If anything, the more games is beneficial, more chemistry and whatnot. I'm going with Alabama.
I'm also going to go with Alabama. I
think it will be a good game, though.
I think it will. I wouldn't mind seeing Ohio State win, but Alabama, this is probably one of the best offenses I think we have ever seen Alabama put out ever. Now you can make an argument that last season was pretty solid with, having obviously Tagovailoa got hurt, but they, with the guys that they brought in,
and then the Waddle were still there.
Whew. Yeah, and then the receivers that they had. Apparently now I've heard things. I don't think it'll happen that Waddle is thinking about maybe playing in the game. I don't know if he will, but I've heard rumors that maybe he will. If that's the case, good luck. You have the Heisman winning trophy winner at Devonta Smith, potentially Jalen Waddle, Najee Harris, Mac Jones, loads of guys on that team that it'll be a very high scoring game, and I would expect Alabama to win.
Yeah, it'll be another 4.5 hour long national championship.
Yeah. But anyways, so that's the end of our show, Nick. Is there anything that you wanted to bring up here?
Yeah, so I was going to put you on the spot. So NFL playoffs, we got Tampa Bay at the Washington football team, the 7-9 Washington football team, which is the first sub-500 football team. I did not mean to. That's funny. Sub-500 football team to make the playoffs since who? Putting you on the spot.
Sub-500. I would say since when Seattle went 7-9.
In 2010, they went 7-9 the Beastquake, and they beat the reigning Super Bowl champions New Orleans Saints. But the last team was actually Carolina in 2014. They went 7-8-1.
Oh,
in the playoffs. I believe I read they were like 4-8-1 or 3-8-1, and they won like their last 3 or 4. And if you had to guess, all time, how many teams have done it?
I know we were just talking about this like last week, and I think I looked it up. I don't know if I'll get it right, but I believe there's only been like 6 teams that have done it.
Actually, only 4. It's the 2 teams we just mentioned, and then twice in 1982, it was Cleveland and Detroit. Probably the worst 2 franchises in history. So it's funny when they actually made the playoffs, they still didn't have a winning record. But they were only like 3-4 that year. They didn't even play many games back then.
Must have been the strike.
It could have been. I didn't really read much up on it. I just know they were like 3-4 or something like that. But you got Seattle, so I'll give you that. I figured I put you on the spot.
All that matters.
By the way, I'm taking Tampa in that game. I picked Tampa to win the Super Bowl at the beginning of the year. But I tell you what, I did not pick Tampa coming into the playoffs. My playoff predictions, I did not pick Tampa to win the Super Bowl. I did not even pick them to make it. It is the first time I have not predicted Tom Brady to win the Super Bowl in probably 5 years, 4 or 5 years.
So that's got to be tough for you.
It was, especially considering we put the Packers in the Super Bowl.
Oh man. Well, that's rough.
But I really hope he proves me wrong, and I would not be shocked one bit if he does. This is the GOAT.
Anyways, folks, that's the end of the show. Thank you for listening to episode 41 of the Dorton and Doetkott Debate podcast. If you want to follow us on social media, you can follow myself on Twitter at Lucas_Dorton, capital L, capital D. If you want to follow Nick on Twitter at Doetkott. Doetkott, whatever is easier for you to type in the Twitter handle there. And if you would like to follow our Twitter page, it is at DND_podcast, capital D's, capital P for that. Certainly be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Share it with friends or family. If you or anyone that you know would like to be on a show at some point, let either Nick or myself know. And we certainly like to have you on. It's always good to have new faces on here to break things up a little bit. But anyways, folks, once again, thank you for listening to episode 41 of the Dorton and Doetkott Debate podcast. And until next time, we are out.